Fast Track Grad live workshop of 2024. We've got something for everybody today. We're going to be covering by the end of this session the nuts and bolts of getting started with multivariate regression analysis. We've got a submission of systematic review from our group that Rodney has shared with us, where I'm amazed. Rodney, just shout out to you. You've done a bang up job. I'm really excited to go over your draft manuscript. Rodney, working step by step through our 100% free training that you can find in the group. I'm going to show you where to find it later if you're new joining us. Has completed research from scratch for the first time, and it's a doozy. I'm really excited to go through that manuscript. It's almost ready to submit, and it's the first time I've seen it. Wow. Then we're going to go through several tips on finding a winning topic, the main theme of today. Many of you are launching into the new year. You've struggled with research before. You've gone in circles, and so much of that can trace back to getting the topic right. Many of you approach me and say, hey, I'm struggling with writing. I can't, I'm not communicating well with my supervisor. And many times this traces back several steps earlier in the process that there was an original sin where the topic just wasn't right on point. And it causes frustration that manifests later in headache and problems. And sometimes we need to go back to those beginning steps. So we're going to do that for some of you who are at the very beginning, and some of you who just might be struggling. This is going to be a valuable check to make sure your topic's on point, and that's not really what's causing you headache and frustration. As ever, we're going to start the session with my quick tip going into 2024. And the quick tip is really linked to a New Year's resolution for me. And I mean that it's about productivity. I noticed on myself that I needed to change my relationship with coffee, with caffeine. I was finding that I was having some productivity peaks and valleys, and I was slowly microdosing myself more and more throughout the year, espresso shots. Now, part of that has been living in Milan, Italy, which is the land of coffee, and it's one of my favorite things here. But what I realized is that I was getting to a point where I was waking up in the morning and heading straight to the espresso machine just to feel normal, just to feel awake. So the past few days, many of you might have seen I've been slow to respond. I've completely detoxed off coffee, and the first few days I had massive withdrawal headaches and I was practically comatose. But to me, that was also a sign that I really wasn't using coffee as intended to give me that extra boost for special occasions when needed. I was using it just to get through the day. So my quick tip for you, if you're using any drug, could be coffee, could be tea, could be something else, hope nothing too serious, check your relationship with it and see if it's a healthy relationship that you're using it to give you that needed boost just when you need it, or if you're really using it just to get by. And so I'm going through this experiment, and look, coffee has a lot of benefits. I'm not hating on coffee. I'm going to continue to use it, but I'm resetting my relationship with it. Okay, so with that, we're going to jump straight through first to Rodney's, but I want to share with you guys where to join our Facebook group and where you can get a lot of the free support that we offer, because you're going to see just how well it can pay off in the case of Rodney. So I'm going to share my screen, and this is where often things go quite wrong when I don't have multiple monitors. So let me try to share a window and see if I can get this up to the Facebook group. Okay. And guys, as ever, yell at me in the chat if something has gone funky and you can't see it. So, okay, here we go. It should be shared now and should be active. Okay. So you're just going to go here to Facebook groups, Fast Track Grad. And where you're going to find a lot of our valuable support is going to be through our chats. We've got other professors in this community, in this group, other grads. This is a mutually supportive community where we all want to collectively help each other to produce better and better research. And so this is a great place to be in touch, not just with me, but the entire community in Fast Track. We have nothing to sell you here. This is, again, 100% valuable and free. And in fact, a lot of the questions I'm taking today have come from these chats. The other place that I want you to go is to our guide section. And the guide section is where you're going to find the step-by-step course that Rodney went through to get to where we're at. Now, the one I recommend for most of you, because there's a lot of valuable material here, scroll down to the very end, and I may reorder these coming up because they've gotten a bit clunky as we've produced a lot of videos. One, we did a systematic review challenge in 2022 in which we started step by step and said, hey, here's the challenge. Publish, start to finish, a systematic review in 3 months' time. Many of you didn't believe it was possible, and yet, as you can see from many testimonials in the group, it 100% is. It's not that many of you can't do research. It's that you just aren't getting the right support guidance. And here we have provided the tools and training that I wish I would have had when I was sitting right where you are, maybe embarking on research for the first time. So this is it. Go through this. And then for many of you who are struggling with your PhD or master's thesis or research in general, we put together this guide that covers kind of the nuts and bolts of everything that you need to get right to really thrive on writing, finding the gap, our GIFT method for research proposals, and finding good structure. So check this out. It is going to be, no exaggeration, a lifesaver for many of you. And I'm just going to check the comments here. Switch the screen off as we switch and take on Rodney's topic to make sure that I haven't completely messed something up, which unfortunately I too often do. Big welcome to everybody. Some of you are joining us from YouTube. Some of you guys are joining us from other platforms. Really great to have you with us. Okay, so I'm going to pull up Rodney's document, and I'm just going to read to you what Rodney said here. I'm going to paste it in the chat as well. So Rodney says, New Year's greetings, Prof. Stuckler. We would be grateful if you could use our manuscript for the live session feedback. We use the teaching guidelines on the Fast Track Facebook group to conduct the systematic review, and we're considering submitting it to a regional journal. Thank you for your time, Rodney. Awesome, Rodney. So yeah, let's pull this up and take a look. And nice to see the Happy Year and New Year greetings. It really is. I'm really proud of this community. I'm proud of everybody here. It's truly international and truly a friendly group. So many of you have been feeling isolated and lacking support, and that's what really this is all about, to kind of avoid that frustrating feeling of being alone on this very, very long journey. And I can tell you, this journey never ends. Because if you want to go down an academic path, or really wherever you want to go in your career, this quest for knowledge, this quest for discovery, it is an ongoing conversation, and it's an ongoing challenge where you have to overcome some of your own personal battles and limitations to really get there. Okay, so here I think I've got it, and no, that's not what I want. I want this one. Okay, best of not chewing. Okay, I think I've got it up here now, guys. So here we go. Now, Rodney, and just make sure, I hope you guys can all see this. Yeah, it looks like it's there. Okay, so here we go. Impact of habitual betel quid chewing on cardiovascular risk and outcomes, a systematic review. So I think I've seen these Betties as kind of it's a chewing tobacco, quite potent, very common, I believe, in India. Could be mistaken. I'm not sure if betel quid is the right name for it. Check that. Yeah, but I'm assuming you guys know more than me on that. So I'm going to look at this a bit like an editor would look at it to give you some feedback. And I did take a quick glance earlier, and I covered kind of 5 main things that I think you can improve on this. But overall, I just want to say you've really done a bang-up job. So we've got the abstract here, objectives, methods, results, conclusions. I'm just going to take a look at what the authors did and what they found. So they're trying to see very clearly, this is leading cause of oral cancer. Is it also a risk factor for heart disease? And so they did a systematic literature review. Excellent. Search PubMed. Great. And we'll come back to some of this in the abstract. We'll spend a bit of time in the abstract. Included finally 19 studies. Great. And found that, yes, there's a higher risk. There's also hypertension, some other things, and it's an important cardiovascular risk factor. Fantastic. This looks good. I mean, the message, I really like this because the message is clear. It's well-defined. You've highlighted importantly what the big gap is that you're trying to fill and why we need this review. So yeah, this is right on track. The editors are going to get immediately what you've done, why it's important, what you've shown. So yeah, big handshake. So I can already see one of the big things. We need to format this manuscript for your topic, your target journal. I don't know if you've already mapped that out, but a few minor formatting things. Let's get the abstract on the second page. We need to get the word count up top. And I've got a whole training on how to format your manuscript if you've never formatted a manuscript or submitted it before. So I'm going to share that with you afterwards because I think it's going to really help you a lot. But basically like this, you also want to include page numbers. I like that you got the line numbers. Some journals require it, some don't, but good to include there. You also want to check the format here. Here we've got objectives, methods, results, conclusions. Just make sure that that's the format that your journal wants and you've stayed within the word count here. This looks a little bit wordy to my eye on the word count. Usually it's within 250, but it may be 300. So that's really good. So some minor formatting elements. Going through here, the methods. I mean, the introduction structure looks really nice. You said what's the issue. One thing though that is a little undercooked is the point you made about there's been a lot of studies linking it to oral cancer, but not so much related to heart disease. So that's missing. And I would kind of separate these paragraphs out. I'll come to that in a second. Your search strategy is good. One thing when you're justifying, we didn't use Google Scholar. We just want to be a little careful here not to alienate some people who do use Google Scholar. And this is a little bit vague. So if you do happen to get a reviewer who says, well, actually, you can use Google Scholar in certain circumstances, which is true, you can, you're just kind of raising a flag up and saying, hey, come attack me on this. So there's a little bit of an art in this phrasing to say what you want to say without opening yourself up a chink in your armor so that people could attack you. So I'll go through that. Then the other thing I noticed going through the results, I really like how you've structured the results, by the way. You've got the top matter saying what the studies are. Here you've got something that's undercooked. And then you go through the different cardiovascular disease outcomes. So I like that you structured by outcomes. I thought you might want to go by risk factors and then outcomes, just to be a little bit clearer. And then you kind of come down to this difference in women. I think that would be a subsection of another section. You get to mortality. I think this should be at the end. And then you get to overall cardiovascular disease risk. So I might move this so to where you get kind of the risk factors and then the outcomes. And then maybe stratify it by gender, which you've done. But overall, the content's all there. It's just making it a little clearer. The other thing you want to do is keep this parallel. So when I say parallel, if you look up here in your abstract, you've gone through and you ended with hypertension. But if you look through the structure of your results section, coming back down, making everybody dizzy flying through this, you can see you start with hypertension. So I would keep that, because remember, people are looking at this at a glance. Keep that parallel structure. That's one of my main tips. I'm going to summarize this for you at the end, so don't worry if I'm flying through quickly. So that's just going to be a little bit of reshuffling. The other thing is we need a little bit of signposting here. And I've really got a really great video on signposting. So I'm just going to put this here so you've got it, and I'm going to send this back to you after. I'm going to say suggest parallel structure with abstract. And I'm going to say start with risk factors and then outcomes, perhaps ending on CVD, then a subsection stratified by gender, where you look at female risk, which I think is really nice. Okay. And coming back down, then what I'm doing is I'm taking a macro look at the structure at the moment. This is good. You've got the main summary here. Some things are unnecessary that you focus on human studies. Well, I don't think we care about mice chewing these BD so much, and the animal studies aren't really that important here when we can study real people. So I don't think you need that. I don't think you need to restate this either, and I'll explain why. So usually what you want to do is specify the results and head straight to the limitations. And I can see your limitations come down towards the end, right in here, which is good. What you want to do in these limitations is, these have kind of mixed limitations. You want to separate the limitations into limitations of the review process, maybe your keywords you use, the databases you searched, and this would be a good point to make your point earlier that you only searched PubMed because you didn't have access to the other databases. That goes here. And you can see you repeated your point about Google Scholar here. Then after you say the limitations of what we did, then you want to specify the limitations of the studies themselves. And that's where your point that you have earlier comes in. Limitations here from only looking at these countries, because that's what was in the data itself. So that points to, all right, we need future research to maybe look at India, look at other countries where this betel quid chewing is quite prominent. These BDs, I think they're called. So I hope that makes sense. I'm just going to check the comments to see if you're not, if you're with me. Okay, good. Any questions about that? Do let me know. And I'm going to go through and do some very quick word changes here. So what I suggest here, I'm put on track changes, and I'm going to be moving quite quickly. This moves down, moves down. And I would put here, just to make it easier for yourself here, study limitations. Say something here before turning to interpreting further our study's findings. We must first note several important and limitations of both the review methods and of the studies, included studies themselves. All right, this is a first paragraph that's just saying what we're going to deliver, and I recommend that you, right, when you're moving quickly, make sure your spelling's on. Use Grammarly if English is not your first language. Okay, and then I would move the limitations. So I'm doing some surgery here, and split these up. So let's move these here, and then I think the second was, oops, and I lost it. Sorry, guys. Here we go. I think this is the next. And then your conclusions, finally, you want to do kind of implications for future research and policy. So I would put that there. And I think you need to say something here. You've earned the right, after showing this is bad for heart disease. Well, what should governments, what should health practitioners, what needs to be done? That's a little bit missing there. And I think it's quite important. So I want to dedicate some time to that. There were also a series of gaps in the included studies. Although Betocquid is frequently consumed in some Asian countries and especially India, our review we were unable to find studies from these areas which met our inclusion criteria. There we go. And if your site, I think these sites are saying that you're using 4 sites here to say that it's common. Move this site to where it's applicable. And the same thing here. Then go through here and you can start the numbering again for these points. Okay. Hope that makes sense. I'm going to be wrapping up here soon. Like I said, move this stuff around. Then finally, in the abstract, I want to come back to, because that's something that a lot of you struggle with. So I actually think this is really good. I think some things we can do here is a little bit, you've already said the gap, so we can remove unnecessary words. This is not necessary. Is a leading cause of oral cancer, and people don't know necessarily what, maybe say it's a tobacco product, I believe it is leading cause of oral cancer where it is most prevalent. And I would get straight to the point here. However, it is not well understood whether Betocquid chewing is also a cause of adverse CVD outcomes. And you can just say it more simply. And you don't need this either. So I'm just cutting things that are unnecessary. To address this gap, we conduct a systematic review, and you can say systematic review of peer-reviewed studies evaluating the impact of habitual use on cardiovascular risk factors and outcomes. Perfect. I hope that makes sense. Sometimes this editing is pretty tough. We've got a training I want you to go back and watch called The Elements, and it's one of our free trainings in the group. And one of the principles here is reduce unnecessary words. So why? Because when you have more words, it just takes away from your good stuff. And oftentimes, right, it's like Hemingway said once, I am sorry I wrote you a long letter. I didn't have time to write a short one. To be brief and concise really is a hallmark of good scientific writing. And it takes time to develop and practice. So look over your sentences when you're doing your editing and see what you don't need. The other thing I'd encourage you to do is drop this into ChatGPT. We've got a video showing that, because you've done the first pass. It's not cheating if you've done the first pass yourself and get ChatGPT to edit it for you. I definitely recommend that. So focus on the content and focus on the clarity, and use ChatGPT in this way as a research assistant. I would say here we included studies. So you're talking about your exclusion criteria. We included studies if, one, they included human subjects, and 2, were peer-reviewed articles in indexed journals. Something like that, I think, is what you want to say. And 3, were in English. And I like to personally put the studies that you've got here, that you have 19, however many studies here, and go through it. But I see you wanted to put that in the results. That's totally okay as well. And then this point about the meta-analysis, I would take this out here and put that in the methods, and also come back again in the study limitations section. Okay, and then the last thing about the results, it was the parallel structure. But other than that, I mean, Rodney, to me, this is just amazing and really a testament. You're right. I'm taking good and trying to make it great. This is definitely publishable, 100%. And I think you can feel really proud. So I'll give you a final comment. Well done, with a smiley face, because I'm just really, I mean, this is why I do this, so that people all over the world can be able to produce this kind of high quality research, even if you've never done it before. Okay, so let me come back. I'm gonna stop sharing the screen. And we got a good question here about systematic review. Some argue that systematic review is more applicable to science than social sciences. Look, I'm definitely an evangelist for systematic reviews because it gets you expertise fast. It gets you feeling confident. And it's a great way to identify gaps for your future research. So there's lots of advantages to doing it. Social sciences are picking them up increasingly. Most social sciences, you've got to do a literature review. I recommend doing that literature review as a systematic review. So we're seeing economics, political science, sociology, lots of different fields in the social sciences are taking them up. And you can look through my publications and see multiple that we published in high impact journals across different areas of social science using these journals. So like I said, if you got to do a literature review, practically, why not do it in a step-by-step way that's going to enable you to publish and read everything and make sure you've left no stone uncovered. You're going to see things that other people can't see in your field, and it's something that's going to make you feel confident and also feel proud going forward. So I really like it. Example now, this is a really good question. This was coming up about PubMed. I'm really glad you asked this. Usually you want to. In this case, PubMed and Web of Science are my two favorite ones because some studies have been done that show that together they cover more than 97% of the potential studies that could be included out there. Some simulations have been run. Happy to share that citation if it's interesting to you. So yeah, I think it's definitely worth using multiple. In this case, though, the authors will be submitting from developing countries. And developing countries get things like waivers on publication fees, and other things tend to have a waiver of and can address this potentially in cover letter to say we focus on PubMed because as authors from developing countries, that was the only one that we have open access available to us. It's going to be hard for editors to say we're not going to take this for that reason. So I don't want. Sometimes I think there's a tendency to find excuses for saying, well, I don't have access to databases. I can't do this stuff. I don't want you to get into that mindset. I want you to do the best you can with the resources that you have. And sometimes people say, well, I don't have a famous professor who's co-authoring with me. That's not a reason to hold you back. In fact, it can even be a hindrance at times. So I'm glad you asked that. Don't let it hold you back. By the way, here's the link to the course that Rodney followed, and others of you can take advantage of as well in our guide section. Okay, I'm going to keep moving and I'm going to turn to topic because this is one that some of you embarking in the new year, you really want to make some progress. And I'm going to come back to helping with this too. Somebody just raised a question about open access. I'm going to come back to this and help on that in a second later on. But let me get through these key topics so that there's something for everybody in the session. So Emily writes, hey, Prof, I joined the Facebook group and I get more confused and I go blank. I'm starting my PhD journey, but sometimes I feel so overwhelmed and keep on wondering where to start. And what Emily's struggling with is finding the topic. And so Emily, thanks for sharing. I'm sharing with everybody your background because Emily's a very serious person, a very talented, capable, smart. Look at Emily's background, 15 years of experience in banking, finance, ESG, has several degrees, and is fighting the same struggles that maybe many of you have experienced. And that kind of paralysis is real. It's a real thing. And it can be terribly frustrating, and it can make you question your whole existence to think that you're not good enough and you can't do it. So that's really where, if you have that feeling, I mean, Emily, what you've done is right. It's time to seek help because it means you're right. It's like if you wanted to become a professional tennis player, everybody's got a coach. You're not going to get there without that support and guidance. That's where you need to ask your supervisors for help and support, or tap, for example, our free resources here in the group. Look to your peers and colleagues. You need a mentor somewhere. Almost no one anywhere gets to the top without behind the scenes having one or multiple mentors who have helped them get there. I certainly have benefited from a dream team of mentors along the way. You know, a lot of people like to go out and say, "Oh, I'm just an independent genius, a great person who got here on my own." And that might be well and good for social media and try to hype up your fame or something. But the reality is that's just rarely the case. Most people, almost all who are successful, have had a mentor along the way. Okay, Emily, I digress. So Emily shared with us 3 potential topics here. But what Emily said is a really big clue to me here. Emily said where she wants to go, and it's not showing. It says here something about her longer term goals. So I like to have everything kind of line up in a straight line with your research pointing to where you want to go career-wise. And Emily says, I'm pursuing a Six Sigma certification. Tells me Emily's really passionate about Six Sigma. And I'd like to combine my research with Six Sigma and later become an independent consultant with expertise in the application of Six Sigma. Awesome. Okay, cool. So Emily sent 3 potential topics that she's been looking at. Here, I'm going to share this in the group as well. And I can already see that, right, the first 2 relate to Six Sigma, and the third has nothing to do with Six Sigma. So I already want to kick that one out. Not because it's a bad topic, not because because you can't do it, but it's just not pointing in the direction of where you want to go career-wise. And that is a really important consideration. If you're passionate about something, you need that passion because it's going to keep you motivated when things get hard. So I definitely want to put you in the space of Six Sigma. I want to put you in that space too, because a quick search on Google Scholar will find you'll see a lot of activity about Six Sigma as a management approach going on. So there's a big conversation there that you can be a part of. Now you can kind of foreshadow where I'm going to take you next, and that is I recommend systematic review. It's the best way to get unstuck if you don't know where to go. It's a ready-made method, and you have access to it, and you can see the fruit of it just a moment ago. So I'm going to recommend we engineer your topic on Six Sigma into a systematic review. Let me show you how we can potentially do that. So I'm going to, once again, share my screen, but this time I'm going to pull up a whiteboard. There we go. All right, and let's see if this pulls. Okay, great. So I'm gonna copy and paste what you had here. Here we go. We got your topics. I'm just trying to convert it into a way that we can follow a little bit better. So, right, like I said, I'm going to get rid of this third topic. This is a good topic. This is a really good topic. If somebody wants to take this topic, this would be great. But I'm going to kick it out for now. So let me create some bubbles here, and I'm kind of jumping around the screen across my camera to see everything. So what we've got is this Six Sigma principles. And so that's kind of a way to think about your intervention. And I want to think about now, what are your outcomes? You're kind of interested in Six Sigma. You're really interested in risk management. And I can see other things. So what am I doing? I'm just taking your topics and I'm making a map. You're interested in digital banking. Okay. You're interested in regional and rural development. And you're interested in innovation in SMEs and rural areas. This is kind of me deconstructing what you shared with me. Now, the heart of most systematic reviews is they answer a question that can be defined in the relationship of one thing to another. So we know we got Six Sigma, and we want to say, okay, does Six Sigma, and this is a population, maybe digital banking, these are outcomes. So we can think about different things. So one, you might want to look at all of the studies looking at the application of Six Sigma or interventions of Six Sigma in management to see how they help achieve risk management, say, in digital banks. That would be one. Or Six Sigma in maybe government ministries of finance to improve regional and rural development, or to innovate in small, medium enterprises. These are all excellent, I think, possibilities. So I've kind of just restructured, and you can see me moving around here trying to figure out how, here we go. Okay, I can move digital banking. So risk management, digital banking, what you need to do is figure out here, you need to do a little bit of scoping, figure out, are there enough research articles that you can do a systematic review on this? My suspicion is that this is going to be close. I like this more because this is closer to what you want to do. And this development is more an outcome of people are going to be looking at, say, GDP or other economic outcome measures. I don't know if those studies are going to be there. but they could be. This is looking more at kind of the firm level. My sense here is risk management probably there's going to be quite a bit, because this is, to my understanding, what Six Sigma is more about. I'm not an expert on Six Sigma, so throw up my hands there. You are. But my initial impulse would be to clarify your topic. So my big recommendations here are to do a systematic review, looking at, say, the impact of Six Sigma on risk management practices in the digital banking sector. Something like this. And you may have to broaden it and a systematic review. And I like that a lot. Why is that important as a topic? Because we're setting some boundaries on it. And if you think about when you set boundaries, if you kind of try to construct imagine we want to construct a football field. And if we construct a football field that's like this, well, that's not going to be very fun to play in. Same thing, if we construct a football field that looks kind of like, I'm trying to draw, and this thing doesn't want to let me draw. Hang on. If we construct a football field that looks like this, that's just giant, well, then you're going to have like our little stick figure people running around here and not having a very good time. So, right, so you need to kind of define the space in a way that's going to get you good stuff and be fun to play in. So this is defining a space, defining a relationship, so you can answer a specific question. And if it's too big, right, you're going to get lost and overwhelmed. If it's too narrow, you should be doing an original research study. There's not enough articles for an actual review. So, Emily, I hope this helps. I like this topic because it's on point with your career goals. It's well defined. It hasn't been done before. Check Google Scholar for systematic reviews. And it's engaging a big conversation. So to me, that's ticking all the boxes you're going to see in our convergence training of we've got passion. Yes. Is it feasible? Yes. Is there a debate? Yes. It hits all the three signs to me of a winning topic. So hope that helps. And let me know what you think in the comments if that can work for you. We got a comment here about topics. So should your topic always contain dependent and independent variables? Yes and no. So if you only have outcome variables, what question are you asking? So maybe, for example, there are studies that have said, I want to look at the prevalence of HIV in sub-Saharan Africa. And I know studies are across the board. And to me, the main thing is I want to show how prevalent this problem is. And so they do a meta-analysis of all the HIV studies. Or I want to look at HIV in pregnant women in that subgroup, and I want to see how bad the problem is. And so the problem they're solving is they're pulling together the best evidence on how big a problem is. They don't need an independent variable in that case, because the innovation, the gap they're filling, is quantifying the scale of the problem. You could imagine doing the same thing for inequality. Systematic reviews can be great for that. Now, in other cases, you might want to do it without specifying independent variables. Let's say I want to look at the drivers or the determinants of something. It could be, I want to look at the determinants of deforestation, right? Why are some countries experiencing rapid deforestation, but other countries like Costa Rica have experienced reforestation and are replanting the rainforest? And so you haven't specified what the drivers are, because you want to hone your research to look at it. That's one way to go too. And I'm really glad you asked this, because I want to go share my screen again and give you basically our main tool that we have for breaking out a topic. And I was kind of doing this behind the scenes without saying so, is called PICO. And PICO really stands for population, intervention, comparison, and outcome. And usually to have a well-defined topic, you need two of these. You need two. Not always, but in my experience, two helps. If you start going three, it can get too limited. It's a rule of thumb, not necessarily the case. But if you look at this PICO, well, how does this apply here? Well, we said the populations can be digital banking sector. That's kind of what we're looking at. The intervention, is going to be here. Let me run down here. Actually, let me just make a new box. I'm not amazing with these whiteboards. There are people way more tech savvy than me. The intervention is going to be Six Sigma. And the outcome is going to be risk management. All right. So well-defined topic, you can kind of break apart into these parameters. So for example, taking advantage, if we want to look at the determinants of deforestation, The outcome is going to be deforestation. And we're going to be looking at the things, these interventions or things that are causing it. So we're leaving this blank. This is what we're hunting for. All right, these are the interventions. And you can do it like this. And your population is going to be, you're going to be looking at countries, country level. Why are some countries succeeding and others not? In this case, there's not necessarily a clear defined comparison group. You can do this. This is more the case in randomized trials, but Six Sigma would be kind of normal. If there is a comparison, it would be kind of conventional management practice. Right? Implicit, there's a comparison there. Here, you don't have a comparison. So this PICO tool can just kind of help you to make sure, again, it's just an extra tool to help you ensure your topic's really on point and well-defined. And if you're struggling with your topic, highly recommend using it. Hope that helps answer your question. I'm really glad that you asked this, because this is something that a lot of people struggle with, and knowing, is my topic good? Is this right? And it's good to take that extra time and energy to make sure your topic's on point, because you're about to dump a lot of time into it. You don't want to get on the other end of that and surprise, this was kind of doomed before you ever walk down this road. So that's where, again, having guides and mentors who can see far, who can say, hey, if you take this road, take this fork in the road in the forest, that's going to lead to a dead end. Don't do that. Don't go down that rabbit hole. Maybe take this other road instead. I can share with you the tools that can help you, but there's just, unfortunately, no substitute for having a really good mentor in your corner to help. Okay. Let me hide this. Okay, I'm going to go through a few others, because this really applies to several other questions we had this week, and they asked the same thing, right? And it will apply this one more time. And I want to put this in action. So Andia says, I'm at the very initial stage of 2 to 3 broad topic ideas. I need to narrow it down to one and then write a proposal I can pitch for professors. Your guidance would be helpful. And the topic here got cut off on the screen was promoting health literacy. There we go. Promoting health literacy to improve the mental health outcomes of children and adolescents in Turkana County, Kenya. Okay, so I want to flip back to you guys. If based on what we just went through using that PICO model and working on Emily's topic, what do you guys think about this topic? And what can we do to improve it? I'm going to pull out the whiteboard. So sometimes I think it's really helpful too to get some space. And this is where also community helps. Because when you look at your own topic, you sometimes, after a while, it's like you can't see the forest through the trees. You can't see clearly what's going on anymore. And that's where it helps to become a good critique and help others, because the more practice you get at that, the better you're going to get at doing this for yourself. So let's break this apart, guys. So tell me what you think about this topic that we've got here. And I'm going to zoom in because I'm now seeing that this is probably a little bit hard to see. Okay, here we go. What do you guys think about this? I'll give you guys a couple seconds. We'll take a sip of water and not caffeine, although I have to say I still really feel like a good jolt of espresso would be fantastic. But I'm going to slowly introduce it back when the time is right. Okay. I'm looking through the comments, guys. Any thoughts, suggestions? Let me know. Okay, well, let's go ahead and break this out in our PICO model again. So our PICO, we've got, this is kind of very clear. Mental health outcomes is our outcome. That's pretty clear. Promoting mental health literacy, that's our intervention. All right, actually, I'm going to move things down here so we can stay with our PICO here. Okay, mental health outcomes, mental health literacy. And we've got 2 areas of populations. We're looking at children and adolescents. Okay, in Turkana County, Kenya. Okay. So based on what I said earlier, what do you already see? So in our PICO, in a way, we're over-identified here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 things going on. And the 4 things we have, right, some are very focused, like that's a very narrow area, and some are very broad. These 2 things are very broad. So this creates a little bit of a disjointedness and that narrow focus. Children, adolescents, and this I know it's a big, there's a lot of population there, but right, in terms of defining population is quite narrow. When you shrink your population down to a geographic area, you're also shrinking your potential audience for the studies. For example, the BD studies we looked at earlier, the tobacco product, if they had said we're only going to look in Bangladesh, they can have a lot more difficulty publishing than if they say we're going to look across the Asia Pacific region or across the entire world. Now suddenly India is going to be interested in reading about what's going on there. Here, by limiting in this way, you're really restricting your audience. Now, you may have good reasons for doing so. Kind of like Emily had some career reasons she wanted to focus on Six Sigma. That's okay. But my suggestion is you're not going to be able to review articles doing this. You could set up an epidemiological study, but I don't recommend that for just getting started. It's a lot of work. You got to have a lot of experience, and we're going to come to that next on regression. So what I suggest is going broader. How can you go broader here? You can look at all of Kenya, or why not look at all sub-Saharan Africa? So let's go a little bit broader there, and let's go a little more specific here. I think mental health outcomes, let's go depression, because that's the biggest one in children. It's much more focused. And then mental health literacy, this is quite broad. I want to see kind of what you mean by what is the specific intervention you want to look at. Can you be more precise? Is this a cognitive behavioral therapy intervention? Is this a course in schools that students get? Is this about the internet, right? There's a big conversation on depression and exposure to the internet, social media. I want you to try to be a little bit clearer here. And if you take those steps, you're going to convert this into a much more exciting topic right off the bat. So I think the main area to work, I think we can tweak the population here. I think we can tweak the outcome. But the main thing is really hone in on what is the debate and discussion on mental health literacy that you want to look at. And so I'm pushing you. We can find answers to that, but this is what you need to define. But apart from that, I think you're moving in a great direction. My suggestion to you would be to because I think this is personally interesting, I would be looking at exposure to social media in sub-Saharan Africa. Why? There's been a big conversation on how using Facebook and kids and so forth is bad for mental health in high-income countries, but we know a whole lot less about the situation in sub-Saharan Africa. So I think you could argue for a geographic gap that has been studied elsewhere, but not in this area that's really important. If you want to know more about gaps, more than I can possibly say in the short time, like I said, the guide number 12 has a great training on finding and understanding good research gaps. And somebody's saying here, digital health literacy is an interesting area. Absolutely, but we got to take a broad area and a broad topic and narrow it down to something more tractable in research. So exactly, find a specific intervention inside digital health literacy, or I'm worried there's just going to be a lot in that space. But you could say, we're going to look at all the digital health literacy interventions. You're going to have to take some time to really define what that means and what those specific concrete interventions are. You definitely could do that as well. But it's going to, remember, when we talk about constructing that football field, you're constructing a big football field. And it's not impossible. It's just going to take a lot of work there. So comments here. Yep. Saying here, is the population too narrow? Yeah, you guys covered it. We got that one. That was really well spotted. Somebody said, is there a gap in the literature? Exactly. Really good to be thinking about gaps here. Will literacy be better? Oh, that's a really great point about the literacy. Is it the literacy of the kids? I didn't even clock that looking at this quickly. Is the literacy for the kids themselves? Maybe not. It's probably more for their parents or teachers. Really important to specify. So that's a really good point as well. I kind of have been thinking with adolescents that they were going to be the ones who are getting the digital health literacy intervention. But yeah, or if you're looking at early childhood, the parents are going to be the ones playing a role. So again, power of community right there for you. Okay, we're going to come to our last set of questions. And I'm sorry if I missed some of yours, because I do get a lot of these. I'm going to take a quick one because I just realized I found here, going through the submissions for this week. Harini had a quick question on systematic reviews. It says, I have a doubt. I'm working on an integrative review based on Prisma. Prisma is part of the method you use in doing systematic review. And I got 96 papers. As I started to read and remove based on relevance, papers dropped to 45. Is that okay? Absolutely. That's ideal. If I could step back and say, what's an ideal number? You're kind of right about there. Kind of anywhere 20 to 50. So Yeah, that's Harini, that's fantastic. And I think that's really what happens with a lot of you. It's like, well, am I doing this right? Am I not doing this right? You're not really sure. That's what our group chats are for. So you can get that feedback. Say, yeah, hey, thumbs up, keep going. You can't understand how valuable that little thumbs up can be for so many of you. Here we go. Somebody's saying as well, we need more research on causes of poverty and insecurity. Absolutely. I love working with you guys because so many of you are interested in topics that contribute to the public good. That many of you are doing this saying, I'm going to forego riches and working in pharmaceutical or banking sector because I want to dedicate my life to impacting the public good. And absolutely. Look, we've got a big set of community. We've got several people who have co-authored in this space. So I do encourage you to use the group also to meet up and network with others who want to do this research together. Because together, it's cliche, but it's really true. We really are stronger and can go farther. I'm trying. I know. I can tell. Don't worry. You're doing a big enough job, and this isn't easy. It's research. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. Okay. All right. So I want to come here now to El Fati. Sorry, El Fati. I'm saying your name wrong. But El Fati writes, hey, thanks for inviting me to join the chat. I have a problem with multinomial regression. If anyone can clarify and send me videos, I want to assess the effects of multiple factors on one factor dependent variable. So, and I don't know how to do it. And saying, hey, do you have any videos? Yes, we do have videos and some step-by-step training here. And Fatih is using SPSS, it seems, which is great. Okay. So when doing quantitative analysis, I'm going to bring up a whiteboard again because I'm very visual, and a lot of the students I work with tend to be very visual. Okay, so when I do quantitative analysis, not again. Hang on, gotta get the pen. All right, pen, here we go. I kind of break quantitative analysis into two worlds that sometimes get mixed up, and they cause confusion for different reasons. So one is kind of the how, and the other is the what. Right. So many students are saying, well, I don't know how to do a multiple regression model. And what you're going to do is what you need to set up first. Right. And then we can focus ourselves on the how instead of kind of lumping everything together and not getting anything right at the same time. So what we need to do is first get real clarity on our research question. And I can kind of see from the way you're describing it. Now, maybe you just didn't want to share the topic with us. But I can kind of see from the way you're describing it that it's kind of a sign to me. Again, I may be wrong. Sorry if I'm wrong, but that you don't have full clarity on your research topic here. And look at the clarity that we tried to get here. The same kind of clarity that we tried to get here on Six Sigma, we want to get in your quantitative analysis. So it's the same thing. So what is your outcome variable? Right. Let's just take the poverty example. So that we just had from Africa. I want to see. Okay, how is poverty impacted by, let's say, education. Let's say primary school education. Okay, so access to primary school education, I think, is going to, let's say, reduce poverty in sub-Saharan Africa. Okay, right. This is the beginnings of what we commonly call a DAG, or a directed acyclic graph, which is commonly used to outline, it's also sometimes called a logic model, to outline your logic of what relationships you're looking at. I know this is really basic, and for some of you may say, well, this is obvious, but it's a starting point, and you need to go from there, because you then need to think, okay, primary school education, well, what things can be driving poverty that are also linked to primary school education? So the classic scenario here is, let's say that, well, if your family's rich, or if you have, let's say, educated parents, right, well, then it's more likely that you're going to get access to school education, and you're also going to be less poor. And this is the classic idea of a confounder. If this relationship is positive, educated parents have kids who get more primary school education, and educated parents have less poverty, then you can falsely see a relationship when you're correlating data together statistically between these two things. And this is called confounding. So you need to get clarity on your logic model on what, when I say what, because you need to know what these confounders are, or sometimes people in economics call them sources of heterogeneity, because those are what are going to go in your model. So before you set this up, you need to get clarity on this what. What relationships are you testing, and what needs to go in your model? When that's all clear, then we can start moving to how. And before you start running a regression model, right? Because so many times I see people come to me and say, "Oh, I got a problem with my regression," and the problem starts back here because they just dumped a whole bunch of things into the model that didn't make any sense. Then the next thing you need to do is start small and simple and do things like descriptive statistics. We need to make sure that you can feasibly set up this model with the data that you have. So you need to make a descriptive statistics table to make sure we've got good data on poverty, good data on education, good data on these other potential confounders. Could be age, could be do they live in a city or a rural area? Do they have access to water? Could be a whole bunch of things. So we need to make sure you've actually got the data to power your model with enough numbers. Sometimes people come in and say, well, what's going on with my model? I'm putting a bunch of stuff in. I had 500 observations, now I've got 2. Well, that's because you didn't run these descriptive statistics, which would have detected that there was a problem in what you're trying to set up. Now, once you've got that, then you need to do several steps to clean your data before you even set it up for a regression analysis. Clean. And that's often because data are sometimes coded in ways that are not clean. So you've got funky values that are hard to interpret. And this all comes back to do that data cleaning. You have to have clarity on this hypothesis. For example, is poverty coded from 1 to 5? Yes, I feel very poor. Or is it based on an income? And what income threshold? Do you need to adjust that income in some way? Or do you need to create a multi-dimensional poverty index? You need a lot of clarity on that. So you can't really do that cleaning until you've done that. And you can see we're many steps out from just getting the how of going into SPSS and putting in the code of running a regression. But if you want to know that code in SPSS, you can very easily, and I don't recommend this, right? And because this can lead to frustration, there's drop down menus you can go into, click regression, pop in the independent variables, these things, and the outcome variables, these things, and it'll spit things out for you. So we'll probably do a whole dedicated session on that. But Fatih, just to come back, your question lead me to believe that there are several steps on the what that I want you to clarify for us and pop that into our quant support group channel. And then once you got clarity on that, let's get descriptive statistics on all the things that need to be in the model. Make sure that's clean. And then, and only then, we can go through the steps to start coding in SPSS. And yes, I suggest coding because it makes it easier for you to retrace your steps in the future. So I hope that helps. It's a very brief introduction to what's going on there. I just want to give you one last thing on regression. Right, because regression, I think some people get, oh, this sounds so complicated and fancy, and it's actually as simple as something you've done in school. You have your outcome variable here. Let's say that was, I'm going to put P for poverty here, and here's education. Okay, and often, right, you might have data points like this, and it's much easier to see if you've just got 2 variables. And all you're doing with regression is, right, if I ask you, hey, can you draw a line that kind of goes through all these dots? You guys would probably draw something like this, or maybe something like that, or you'd be able to do that. And intuitively, what are you doing when you're drawing that line that runs right through the middle of these points? Is you're drawing a line that tries to minimize the space here. And that's all regression is. You are drawing a line through the points that minimizes the distance, that creates that closest fit possible. We're going to go through, though, to interpret that or make any sense of that, we again, have to live in this world. So I can help you guys do this later, but I think, Al-Fatih, let's take these steps and get over here. But don't get overwhelmed with it. Sometimes there's some fancy sounding terms like, hey, let's make a DAG, guys. It's just this graph. I think everybody can understand this graph. Let's do a regression. That sounds really fancy and complicated. It's something even a kindergartner could do in primary school, drawing a line through the dots. So, the research is already complicated enough. If you break things up into these simple bite-sized chunks, it's going to make your life so much easier. It's going to enable you to do more complicated things down the road. But don't complicate just because think, oh, that's how research has to be. I mean, the ultimate sophistication truly is simplicity. Okay, so I think we're at a good point here. We got a few last questions, and then we're going to call it a day. So I'm going to scroll back through the chat and remind me if I missed something. We've got some happy New Year's. I love this, guys. Yeah, let me see here. I know I missed one. Oh, yeah. Here was a good question. Coming back to systematic review, some scholarly materials which might need to be paid to access. Yes. So I'm not telling you, I would definitely never tell you to go use Sci-Hub. Don't use Sci-Hub to get free articles because that's violating copyright. And I don't want you to do that. Don't do that. Okay. Here we go. I'm researching about written feedback to Spanish learning business students in Germany, and I'm running in circles. Yeah, so go back and try our PICO method here and the steps we've taken to tweak these topics because, all right, I think in the group too, you can see there's this is quite broad. This is quite broad, and it's quite broad, but it's also very focused at the same time. So, right, you specify Spanish learning to business students in Germany. You might need to go back and say English as a foreign language and look at English. It's broader. Or if you want to do Spanish, you might not have enough studies. You need to go wider than Germany. Again, I suggest starting it with a systematic review to do that because it's going to set up those good habits that you're later going to carry over into doing maybe quantitative analysis or interviews or anything else that you want to do. So especially here, this is, it's you can see how, ironically, a topic can be broad and narrow at the same time when you start looking at those PICO components. And that's what's going on here. Here we go. Get an example from an existing systematic literature review. Yeah, so often systematic literature reviews are going to point out gaps for research. This is looking at, right, these elements of Six Sigma to reduce costs. So that's a well-defined review. I don't want you to that would be a nice piece for a study. And you could potentially do that as a systematic review. You just need to check if there's enough studies on it. But use the PICO tool, define it, and then go through. It's the first step in our systematic review training to make sure it's feasible that there are enough studies for you to actually review. You said coming back to Spanish business students, I can compare advanced to beginners. Yeah, again, you're specifying even more, and I think that's it's an element that can come out as a sub-analysis, like in that BD's tobacco study, where as a sub-element look at the differences between men and women. That can come out, but I would first broaden a little bit because I don't think you're going to have enough articles for the Spanish learning one to go there, if that makes sense. Okay. Dear Prof, I decided to transfer from articles publishing to a monograph because it's so difficult to publish in linguistics. Would you still begin with methodology? So there's two broad styles of dissertations. One is article-based, and one is more chapter, kind of monograph-based, and both are okay. I find it easier to think in chapters or articles because they're bite-sized chunks. So same thing with, you've got to have a well-defined topic to get started, whether you do it as a monograph or article. So yeah, you need to, in any area, you need to have a topic, which is kind of a question or an area of inquiry, and then you've got to choose the right method that's going to enable you to carry that forward. So probably if you're doing a conventional style, I did my PhD in that conventional style, you'll have a methodology chapter where you review different methodologies and figure out which methodology is right for your research question. Not something you usually publish, but something that kind of then shows to your examiners that you have knowledge of these different methods and you can make intelligent choices based on them. So I'm not sure I fully understand your question, but hope that helps. And again, the question about SPSS, we do have some dedicated training. One of the things about step-by-step training that we provide to you here is that it's the right training at the right time. Because one of the most frustrating things is taking 2 steps forwards and then having to go backwards because something was wrong. And that's why I may suggest you guys take a step back to go forward. And don't be afraid to do that. It's not a failure. It's oftentimes a sign of vital recognition to unblock yourself to move ahead. Guys, Really enjoyed the session. Really glad to be back with you, and we'll keep running these on a weekly, bi-weekly basis. Just depends on the number of submissions that we get, and hope to have Courtney back with us, joining us for the next one. She's been on holiday, and great to see so many of you, even though I know for many of you it's still the holiday season. And we'll be in touch in the DMs, and have a good rest of the day. I'm going to probably take a nap because the lack of caffeine's still getting me. Bye for now, everyone.